Hopefully the setup is going to work out for all the platforms. We got YouTube up and TikTok up. Trying to get Facebook up and going. And while I'm doing that, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer. And it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, claim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Welcome, everybody. Grand Rising to you. How you doing? Thank you for joining us today as we continue this Truth About series. I'll get to the saying hello to everybody in a second. Just want to make sure we get Facebook up and running. As always, it's Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And we're going to talk about something a little different in the Truth About series today. Once again, though, before we get deep into that, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree, and we're thankful for everything that she's doing for the community to make sure that their health is taken care of. Also, if you'd like to support her in her endeavor to make sure that everybody has clothing and things like that, especially in this time when the weather is changing in a lot of places, please feel free to check out what she's doing at changinglivesinitiative.org and the stuff that she's doing to make sure that people can be safe for the winter, and families and children, people of all, even nationalities, can be taken care of. But we're going to talk today about the truth about, and I'm sorry, to the moderators, ministerial staff, SOC, if you agree with us, disagree with us, etc. We appreciate you. All we ask, this is an open format somewhat, it's as open as possible to be able to have proper conversation, dialogue, and even teaching. We just ask that you treat each other like human beings. So if you disagree, that's fine. And we love for you to be able to give your opinion. Believe it or not, some people think that we don't, but we would love for you to give your opinion and tell us what you believe about certain things. If you agree with it, disagree with it, all we ask is that you remain somebody who doesn't mind going into ad hominem and treats people apologetically correct and respects the humanity of others. That's all we're asking. So for some people, that seems to be a big deal. Sometimes all we're asking is that you treat people with respect. A lot of times people disrespect others and then say, why is it that the moderators did this, that, or whatever? The moderators are here to keep the peace, to let us give a cultural perspective that usually is not given, and to allow us to be able to further the conversation for everybody. Heck, sometimes the moderators will even remind me that I need to back down some and calm down some and allow people to be able to speak. All right. So I just wanted to put that out there. All right. Just wanted to put that out there as a reminder. We love to have everybody on here, and we thank you guys so much for being on here and spending some time with us. We appreciate you. As a reminder, too, before we get started as well, don't forget about things like YLP 83, trying to get the land together. Also, too, don't forget about us trying to make sure that we, I just lost it. Patreon Kingdom, Patreon family. We're going to make sure that we come on later today. It is Tuesday, so those who are on Patreon and come up for the specialized that we do just for Patreon members, and then before we flow into our evening sessions, feel free to be able to join us for that. We appreciate you. We honor you. We thank you. We respect everybody. Thanks for being on. I think I've got just about everything I can have in order, so we're going to attempt to get started. Thank you once again for being on. So let's get into it. And today we're going to talk about the truth about bills in this Truth About series. By the way, you can just see what we've been talking about in this series. This series has been going for quite some time now. I want to say maybe even over a week or so. We have the recordings on YouTube, so you can feel free to come on there. Let's say hello to everybody. Let's jump into this. So shalom to everybody, peace be to everybody. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Namaste, ni hao, osayu, ohio. Kamsamida, we appreciate your presence. Ana Kofi, mashalom khe. Aqua Abba, Etasen. Habari, Jambo, Mimini Kofi, Nina Frank, Kukutan, Nueve. We appreciate your presence. And whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok, we appreciate your presence. And thank you so much for being on. Shalom to everybody. How you doing? Minister Anais, Lorraine, how you doing? Let's see. Anubis, Big Brother Thomas, Money Green. What is that? Kitta Catty Cat. How you doing? Is it Plove or P Love? Grand Rising to user 221. How you doing? How you doing, Coco? OG, Jolly, Sister Sharice. Let's see. And thank you for the love. Thank you for the appreciation. We appreciate the gifts and all that great stuff. Thank you so much. Solomon, thanks for being part of the community. Big Brother Vincent. All right, I am Stephen Moody, making sure his music and stuff is up on here. Okay. Let's see, Sister Deborah, Miss Mac, Sister Deja. Okay, Stephen, if that's going to be all you're going to put in there, we got to just go ahead and stop that right now. True by Living Water, Maya B, how you doing? Thanks for being part of the community. Ray Rising to you. It just skipped over the name I was about to say hello to. I see you, Bobby. Thanks for being on. Sister Beverly. Chica Shea Davis. How you doing? Is it, I don't know. Yahuna, Yahunathan, Jonathan Yahunathan Ortiz, I think. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Maya B2, how you doing? Thanks for being on. We appreciate you. How you doing, Kay? Thanks for being part of the community. Everybody who's on all the platforms, we appreciate you. We thank you. We honor you. Alrighty. So is this another white hating group? Well, I don't know. Are white people down there being sprayed? And if they're being sprayed, you might want to consider them more so than the person who hasn't even opened his mouth about black or white yet. But once again, see, a lot of us don't have ears to hear. A lot of us are going to automatically see something and go, I'm going to try to defend it or defend the position or be Republican or Democrat or whatever it is that you decided to do, rather than actually listen to what's being said. So if you would like to listen long enough to what's being said, you might be able to see what we're talking about, and it might be able to make sense to you. You might be able to have more of a comprehension of that which we speak of, right? But some people are so quick, right, to be in this position. Here we go. Somebody said white hating group. Somebody said pink hating group. Y'all slow down long enough. This is the problem. So first of all, today's title, method, or what we're talking about. How you doing, Sister Cynthia? How you doing, Miss Unapologetic? Today, what we're talking about, the motif, the theme, is the truth about bills. So you've seen this, and you don't even recognize what we're talking about yet. How you doing, Sister Barbara? But today we're talking about the truth about bills, because people don't recognize the terms you're using. Police brutality, which, by the way, is not even a lawful term. Try to look it up in the law dictionary. There is no such thing as police brutality. Right? If you were to go to court and say, I'm here to try and get you guys to recognize thus and such as police brutality, the judge might decide to lean your way and help you out. But the reality is police brutality doesn't even exist on the books, right? Because there's no such thing as a brutal police officer if the police officer has to use brutal force. Right? They don't even call it brutal force. You call it brutal force based off of something else. So we're not even talking about that. You have to realize that even if you were to go to courtroom, you're not talking about police brutality. You'd have to say that somebody's trying to circumvent your civil rights. Then you can have an argument, because it's based off of something that this government, that we talked a little bit about last night. And I know I was kind of scatterbrained last night. However, if you were with us last night, you discovered that really even this stuff is a corporation, 28 USC 300215A. And when you look up the definition, the lawful definition of what even Washington, D.C. is, you'll discover that Washington, D.C. is not land owned by anybody, but it is subject, using monarchical terms, or monarchy, kingdom terms, right? We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against origins, kingdom origins, against principalities. So when you look at these terms of monarchy, that that Congress says that Washington, D.C. is subject to it, that Congress is seated in Washington, D.C. It is seated in a place that it does not own. The land is not owned really by anybody, although Virginia supposedly took back its land, but it's not owned by anybody. And the people and the Constitution, depending on which Constitution you use, are declare and are subservient to Congress. Congress are the people who are the families and the people who work for your private corporations. So I wanted to talk to you today about the truth about bills. You see this picture, you think police brutality. How you doing, Minister Shantae, and who else just came on? Did I miss Minister Shantae and someone else? I apologize. You know, but people see this and they even think police brutality. But I'm talking about bills. So you don't recognize, and how you doing, Sister Kimberly? You don't recognize that when this happens, right? What you call police brutality, there's a bill attached to it. There's a payment that has to happen for that. You guys know that, right? Like you literally pay for what you call police brutality. There's a bill, right? Every time somebody goes to war, there's a bill, right? That's what we're talking about. The truth about bills is what we're talking about today. Every time that you see ALM or BLM or tiki torches or whatever, there's a bill that has to be paid. And believe it or not, you pay it because you're part of a wicked corporation that uses your tax money to pay these things. I want to talk about the truth about bills. So you see police brutality and don't even recognize that we're talking about bills. Your money goes towards this stuff, right? Right? Like if you're tired of hearing about it, then you should be tired of paying for it. But you're not tired of paying for it. You're just tired of of the service that you're okay with paying for. You're tired of people coming up against what you've sown into. You invest in police, what you call police brutality. It's a bill. See, and if you was maybe start thinking about this differently, you guys who hate big government, maybe you would stop defending big government. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, nor am I this modern version of American, and I got sense enough to know it. So I'm not here to do that. Now that's Malcolm X, by the way, Minister Malcolm Shabazz, right? So I've got sense enough to realize what's going on. When I see this, right when you see somebody get beat up or killed, or some of y'all haven't seen any of that, but if somebody gets killed or if somebody gets beat up, or you're trying to make sure somebody does something that doesn't do something to you in prison, or in the shelters or all these places, guess what? When that stuff happens, it's a bill and you have to pay for it. Right? And amen. Minister Tamara even put up there, how you doing, Minister Tamara even put up there, that when you're dealing with these stuff, these taxes are paying for wickedness. You hate the idea of tithing, but you pay for police brutality. You just don't think about it. You actually are aware of it, but you don't know it. You're not intimate enough with it to say, I will no longer be of that system. This is what you pay for. This is the truth about bills. You think it's the truth about police brutality. This is the truth about bills. You pay for this. That police vest, it costs money. That water or CS gas that they'll use, or rubber bullets that they say are rubber but then have metal casing on the outside of it, so when it hits your children in the eye, their eyes begin to bleed. And you say, well, the little child shouldn't have been brought out to a march or whatever. That little child shouldn't have been shot with a bullet in the face. But you're okay with paying for this. You invest in it. It's your money. You're fighting for what you invest for. You're invested in this. You have a vested interest in this. You have a vested interest in this. Right? How you doing, Sir Stephen? You have a vested interest in this. And thanks for being part of the community, Brittany. Right? You are invested in it. So because you're invested in it, you're even trying your best to keep it around. See, at least it used to be the people that were invested in it weren't necessarily taxpayers. It was slave owners that paid slave patrol, and slave patrolmen are where American police officers come from. Said, how do I vote? I don't. Because I'm not invested in a system that's not changing anything. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I said that already. I'm not a Republican, Democrat, and I'm not even in this modern version of American, and I got sense enough to know it. And you see the numbers are dwelling down. They're going down, boy, aren't they, when we talk about the subject matter? That's okay. You got to realize that that's what goes on. See, somebody came on OGs because they saw a picture and they don't realize we're talking about the truth about bills. I wonder if you say OGs when a family loses in court, which, by the way, you got to pay for it. And then the court case goes on, and then federal government comes and they got to dig on. So that means you get taxed again. You got to pay for it. And then when they still don't really get justice, the family then decides to go ahead and go, and they decide to go ahead and make sure that they then do it more commercially. It's all commercial, really. But they decide to go ahead and sue, and so then they win that way. And guess who has to pay for that? You do. I forget which year, so please forgive me, but one year, LA literally paid $91 million. I think it was in 1 year. The city of LA paid $91 million just in lawsuits having to do with policing. $91 million. All right. Doesn't seem like a lot to y'all, but almost $100 million probably could go a long way in making sure people eat, schools are better. Maybe you had less government like you said you want, but you pay for more. And by the way, see, it was 91 million for you. It actually cost the state 79 million, but what the state did was they used your taxes. So it was actually 79 million, I believe, right? And I think it was $11 million that was paid in interest, which means that basically like cats on Wall Street and stuff and other type of cats like that, they actually are setting up these things like they set up bonds. So the state is basically paying a bond to make sure that they get out of debt, because debt is like prison. Yeah, we wasted on oppressors and not educating the house and things like that. Exactly, right? So here comes so you paid 91 million. They actually owed, the government owed 79 million. They used your taxes to pay 79 million, but they didn't pay the 79 million right away. They paid it in payments, like a lot of people do when you go to these cash advance places. So they paid the bond. How you doing, Brother Jermaine? They paid the bond, and then over time, right, they kept making minimal payments, and so it crept up to where you ended up paying an extra $11 million. If that's just if you're in the city of LA. By the way, you're in the state of California, so if you're in California, you paid that. See, here's the truth about bills. There's a payment, there's a consequence for this stuff. What about the bill of selling your soul so that you allow this to keep happening and you'll defend it and you'll keep trying to be part of the system? What does that bill look like? Does that bill look like women that feel like they're insecure because they don't have anybody who will fight for them, but will allow them to be sprayed like this and say, well, because you're a Democrat or because you're a Republican, you deserve it? What's that bill look like? What's that part of the bill? Then you do a Q. What does that part of the bill look like? What does the part of the bill look like that says in God we trust, but then you kill off God's children? How you doing, Sister Alter? Bless you. Yeah, what does that bill look like when you say to veterans? Because I'm a veteran myself, but I won't go to the VA because the VA is terrible service for its veterans. Got to wait 2 months to be able to be seen with something while supposedly you say I'm dying of the thing I need to be seen of. What does that bill look like? And you're paying for it the whole time. You said, where do we start? Well, we start right here. Now, if you're talking about things that we do physically, I already talked about things my wife has going on as far as clothing drives, things like that. We already do stuff as far as SOC University, where people can pay donations instead of hundreds of thousands of dollars and be in debt. We're working on finishing up, trying to get this land together, hashtag finish strong and that. We're sitting up here, making sure that we are teaching people how to be sovereign. We're trying to make sure that we support each other's businesses. There's tons of ways to get out the system, but it has to start with a mindset first. You said everybody needs to vote. Okay, cool. And when you finish voting, how many times? When everybody finished voting in 1968, what happened? When everybody, right? Wasn't that when MLK died? 1964, 1960, 1963. 1898, Wilmington, North Carolina gets killed, gets put off the map. Philadelphia, the 1980s. Right? If you want to vote, you have every right to vote. I'm not against your voting. I'm just telling you that I'm not going to be partake in a system that's not really doing anything. I'm not going to partake in the system that's not really helping. I mean, heck, for me to even talk about what I'm talking about right now, we literally have had the numbers suppressed. TikTok doesn't like the picture I use. Yesterday, which is low numbers for us, but yesterday we were still in the 200s. But because I showed grass behind me, I guess it was all right. Now I show a picture of something that they're trying to make sure that they squash, and now it's not okay. Why would I keep voting for a system that does that, that allows that? You got to be willing to reach less people to speak truth. That's the system we live in. Why would I live in that system? Why would I continue to lift that system up? Only somebody who's captivated, living in the land of your captivity, even in the mindset, only somebody who's captivated would live in such a system. Vote if you want. I'm just saying, show me the results of your voting. If the results of your voting is that our people are free, right? And I'm talking about freed men. If you want to go there, give us what you were supposed to give our people, freedmen. Tell our people something as simple as the truth. That right? Because free people should know the truth about their free selves. And so our free selves tell them the truth about the fact that the word Negro doesn't only mean black folk from Africa, it also means black folk from the Americas, people that were here already, right? Like let's be honest. Right? If your voting is going to solve that, then let's vote as much as you can. Right? Yeah, voting just for a step. Like whether I vote or not, I've never had anybody, because I have voted in the past. I've never had one person I voted for make sure they checked on my family. I've never had one person that I voted for make sure that they lifted up what my community needed until it was time to vote. I'm somebody, by the way, who has shown up to wards in different cities and sat in council person meetings and seen absolutely nothing happen off of the practices that they said they were going to do. I'm telling you, somebody. This is not like I'm telling you, somebody who served in the military and was willing to die for the right for you to even have to vote. I'm trying to figure out, when you say voting, what does it mean? I've seen the Electoral College work the way it's supposed to, mind you. Which the Electoral College was not created for the people. The Electoral College was created because people couldn't be trusted to vote for who the United States Corporation wanted to be in power, or even back then, who the United States of America wanted to be in power. Even the word politics or politics, either you're going to be dealing with poli, as far as somebody brought up the other day, so I'll honor it. It actually makes a little sense, right? Or not a little bit, it makes sense, but I don't think the context is correct, but I'll honor it. Poli being people, but poll also being what? Poll being an opinion. When they take a poll, they're taking an opinion. They're not really caring about whether they're going to change something or not. If they take a poll of something, then they're looking at the opinion of something. So your opinion is used to be able to make sure that they twist it to be able to trade in industry, use trade in industry to be able to say, okay, see, all these people said, oh yeah, we want, they said, we want all these people to, uh, they, they said we want all these people to deal with stuff as far as the polls, as far as opinions. We want this, we want that, we want this, we want that, right? So they use your opinion, and then they say, oh, okay, the opinion of the people, if we don't do stuff a little different with this company, then we're going to lose some customers. So we'll go ahead and do this, and we'll tell the government to do this, because the government can't even make up laws and rules and regulations unless the people who sponsor them, the people who gave them money, the people who allowed them to be in office, unless those people sit in and say, this is what you're going to do. That's the way law works. That's the way Congress works. And Congress controls the place they're seated in, which is Washington, D.C. And the United States Corporation, 28 U.S.C. 3000215A, they seat in Washington, D.C. So so the federal government only has power as long as they're seated on the throne of Washington, D.C., built by George Washington. Obelisk, Father God, Columbia, Mother God. Columbia on top of the Senate building. That's why it's Washington District of Columbia. District, by the way, means that it is a zone that's supposed to make sure that it takes on what the government says. So it's the District of Columbia because the goddess Columbia is over it, and Congress by Constitution, the Constitution says that the District of Columbia must be must be subject to Congress. That's how that works. You said, does Congress have power over the president? It depends, right? It depends on what, right? But even the president, you got to comprehend, the president is a head of state. So he's supposed to be the same as a monarch, a king, a queen, an emperor. But there can be like a figurehead, right? He can look like he's doing something, right? But that doesn't mean that they're actually doing something. People do that all the time throughout the story of mankind, right? And even throughout his story, you'll see quite often there are people that have been put in position that really have no power. They just represent whatever somebody tells them to do. Somebody tells them to say this, they say it. Somebody says wear this, they wear it. Somebody says look like this, they look like this. Yeah, kind of. So I guess like the modern term scapegoat, sure. I don't know if we'd go by the actual scapegoat because the scapegoat is somebody that like basically is like Barabbas, but also too, you can go back before Barabbas, like on the Day of Atonement, and you let the scapegoat go, but the scapegoat's going to die off. But he represents that you got off, you should have got off, you should have got what was coming to you, but we'll let you go, and then we'll let you go ahead and die because you'll be without the protection of those that are supposed to be over you, right? So I guess a person can become a scapegoat in that manner where you should have gotten a penalty, but we'll let you go. I guess in the modern scapegoat, modern terms, people don't know what scapegoat is. So I guess in modern terms, like we would say, yeah, you're a scapegoat as far as like everybody wants to punish you. But so I guess in the modern terminology, yeah, like but we're not aware of that. But there's a bill that comes with it. Today's the truth about bills. There's a bill that comes. Breonna Taylor stuff, they still not giving her justice. They're still not going to say that her family's going to get justice. They're still not making sure that they're going to say that the police officer was wrong for killing her. They're just going to say that they lied about how to kill her and how to get in her house and how to try and lock her up unfairly, and it just went wrong. So there are people that are going to serve long sentences, maybe, because the federal government is getting involved. They basically got like their version of RICO charges on them. That RICO obviously is dealing with usually drugs and stuff like that. But they basically are saying like, we see y'all did this, we got you, whatever. But they still aren't going to say you were wrong for shooting Breonna Taylor. That was a wrongful execution. That was a wrongful death, right? They're not going to do that. So guess what the family's going to end up doing? Same thing that Trayvon Martin's family had to end up doing. Same thing that Sandra Bland's family got to end up doing. Same thing, if you want to take it outside of black versus white, same thing that the Cole Brown Simpsons family ended up doing against OJ. They're going to go and they're going to have a civil trial. They're going to go and they're going to sue. They're going to get money. And guess who's going to pay for that? If that's your state, you're going to pay for that. Federal government's taking over because the state didn't just go ahead and give justice in the first place. Guess who's going to pay for that? If you're part of the federal government, if you pay taxes, guess who's going to pay for that? Right? There's a bill attached to everything. For every choice, there is an invoice. The great philosopher Buster Rhymes taught us that. Right? For every choice, there is an invoice. Everything you choose comes with a consequence. And you live in capitalism. I was just talking about politics earlier, right? What's the definition of capitalism? Capitalism is a system in which politics and economics is used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by private corporations and not the state. In other words, the private corporation tells the state or the government or the country, state can mean country as well. That's why you have 50 United States. They are united as 50 different countries. And we even talked about that in Black History 1 last night. We talked about how if you look at the reason why the state seceded, they started talking about the Constitution says that they have the right to go ahead and protect themselves from losing slaves. And they started saying that we have a right to go back to being a free and independent state. We decided to be with the United States, but when y'all started messing with our slavery, we decided to take on our right to secede. They had a right to secede if they felt like they were being under the same tyranny. And why did the United States of America leave? Britain was saying you got to do this, you got to start paying taxes, you got to do all these things. They had never paid taxes. And Britain started saying, hey, this slavery thing is still going to be around, but it's not going to be the same level as what it once was. We want the system of capitalism to come in and take the place of chattel slavery. Or not take the place, but make chattel slavery part of capitalism. You had a lot of chattel slave owners, not just in the South, all over, that said, hey, we ain't really with that. And now go read what those states started saying when they seceded. Read with South Carolina and Texas, and who else did we read over last night? Missouri and Virginia, and there's somebody else I'm missing. But go read that we read over. We read over 6 of them that separated. But read what they had to say. And they'll tell you straight up, oh, yeah, like you're attacking slavery. We have the right to have slaves. The same way that America said you're attacking slavery, we have the right to have slaves. Now, England still was going to keep chattel slavery around, but it was just going to be through prisons, which, by the way, eventually America caught on and did the same thing. And chattel slavery, according to the 13th Amendment, can be for anybody. It just can't be about color only. Yeah, we talked about Mississippi. Thank you, Sister Kimberly. We talked about Mississippi. That's the one I was missing, right? Because Mississippi is the state that Jefferson Davis represented. Right. So you're having a thing talking about bills. When people go to prison, money gets exchanged. That's why you pay your debt to society. Do you not? If you were to go to prison, they would say you were paying your debt to society. By the way, when you come out of prison, you can't even get, even if you're of age, even though you have to have a job, they have to give you a job while you're in prison. You have to be a slave and work a certain job for pennies on the dollar if they say you deserve it. Right? And then you get out and they say you can't get your SSI. Why do they say you can't get SSI? How you doing? Hello, Cameron. Why do they say you can't get your SSI? They say you can't get SSI because you owe a debt. Why? Because whatever you have from the system that's considered to be a benefit or a privilege, it must be taxed. So whatever benefits or privilege you get from the system says that I'm willing to be a debt slave to the system, right? Because anybody who's in debt is a slave, and anybody who's a slave is in debt. So they say, okay, I got to be a debt slave. I got to be a slave to the system. So you go to prison, they even have you sign off. A lot of y'all shouldn't sign off. And if you do, you should put UCC 1-308 to make sure that it was without prejudice. And also you can say that it was under duress, like somebody forced you into it. You should always protect yourself, but we don't know how that works, right? So they force you a lot of times to sign up, or they even forge your signature, do whatever they have. They take your fingerprints and stuff before you're even proven innocent or guilty, which means that they've taken it illegally, unlawfully, and they put you in a position. This is all about money. They get your social security number, which, by the way, is illegal to use for identification for anybody. But see, this is the mafioso. This is a mobocracy. And the mob does everything for money. Don't get it twisted. The mob is killing folks not because that's my territory. The mob is killing folks because my territory determines how much dollars get in my pocket. Hey, how you doing, Jarvis? Right? The mob is not killing people just because of the territory. They're killing people because of the money that comes attached. See, that's why our little mobs and stuff, other cultures, they look at it, they be like, oh, that's cute. They fighting over that street corner. But they ain't making no money off that street corner. Right? The mob is like, we own ports, so we can get the best cocaine. That's how the mob works. The mob says we can get the best cocaine from I don't know, take your pick, because they're everywhere. But we can get the best cocaine and we can ship it over to Italy, and we can do it wholesale. So we can have our people. We can force people to be slaves down there working for us, making sure that they still, they're not picking cotton, now they're picking cocaine. Right, but doing the same thing. They'll do that for us. Then we'll go ahead and put it on our ships. We'll have the slaves help us out to be able to make sure that they get it over the water. When we get it over to Italy and stuff, we can start putting it all over the place in Italy and Europe and other places. And basically we can therefore up the price. UCC 1-308, all it does is basically saying that you have the right to not be prejudged for something before you go into contract, or they're not doing something under duress. In other words, if you go into something and it's supposed to be a contract and the other side dishonors the contract, you have the right to pull out. Now, if you're the dishonorable party, you can't just come out of it, right? You have to be honorable in all that you do. But if you are honorable and somebody who you're with is dishonorable and you have a disagreement, well, UCC 1-308, even if you're going to do it over the phone, by the way. Well, I just want to let you know, this is without prejudice, UCC 1-308. And by the way, you can ask them, is it all right if I record you? And by the way, you can tell them, well, I need you to record this. Are you able to record this? Right? I need you to record this. And if you're going to record this, I need to have the right to be able to hear and to be able to see and to be able to get a copy of what was recorded, or at least to get something that's down. And if I don't get something like that, then I don't need to go ahead and be part of a contract with you. Right? But UCC 1-308 protects you. But once again, this is the truth about bills. All this stuff comes with a bill. We just see police brutality, right? We just see, oh, this happened. Oh, it's random. Oh, blah, blah. Can you believe this happened today? Like, no. This stuff comes with a price. This stuff comes with a price. And once again, it's not just the price of even cash, the price of your soul. Right? What does it feel like? Like, I can't watch this stuff for real. People want me, like, one of the reasons, like, I'm an activist, but one of the things is, I'm gonna be honest with you, I can't look at all the stuff they want you to look. I get so many things sent to me. Look at what they did to this, and I gotta watch sisters with their hands behind their back, watch women who are pregnant lose their babies, on wax, on film, on camera. I have to watch, young men get their life snuffed out. I have to watch somebody in New York say I can't breathe. I have to watch somebody in Wisconsin say I can't breathe. I have to watch somebody in Texas say I can't breathe. I have to watch somebody in Florida say I can't breathe. After a while, like you got to give up a big piece of your humanity to even fight the cause. This is part of why they're waxing folk. And how you doing, Sister Helen? Right? Because this stuff, it comes with a price. There's a bill attached to this stuff. These people sold their soul a long time ago. Now, some of them have souls, still have the ability to at least we all have souls still, but you know what I'm saying? They have their souls still, but they have the ability to like be empathetic enough to where even if not in the moment, some of them in the moment realize how dastardly what they're doing is, but they're just trying to, they've been trained and maybe they're afraid of what the police or the state would do to them if they don't do what it is. Some of them later on might take a couple of years, but they start realizing, man, this is, how many people might have died because of what I did? How many people might have hit, and so you have to realize, like, all of us, including the police officer. That's why I'm not one person to be like, ACAB. I don't really do that, right? But I get it when somebody says that, because no matter how great a police officer you want to call yourself, you are still part of a system that allows people to die, and then you don't have to take care of the bill. Others take care of the bill, and you get paid for those deaths. You get paid to lock up old ladies who've decided to say BLM. You get paid to lock up little children. I know this right here. I've seen it. I've talked to people. There's somebody I was talking to not too long ago. His son, who is autistic, I think drew a picture of a weapon and showed it to somebody. And he said that he thought it was cool. The teacher sees it and says the child, we don't know this for sure, but says the child that the person showed it to was like threatened or felt weird by it or whatever, which I could even see that in a sense, right? That, if you got children drawing weapons and stuff, that can be a little weird, especially with a lot of shootings and stuff going on. Granted, right? But this person's autistic, not really thinking correctly or thinking what you would think correctly, not thinking within this confine of what the system says. They do something like that. Guess what happens? Police come over, little black boy locked up. Oh, I'm sorry, this one didn't get locked up. This one, a lot of them get locked up. This one got arrested, but didn't get locked up. Little boy. Couldn't have been no more in the kindergarten, first grade, if memory serves correct. Little boy. What does that look like when he gets older? The police were just doing their job. They always do their job. No, they're part of a wicked and corrupt system. They don't care about those things. What's the bill for that? What's the bill for that? What do the parents go through now every time that child goes back to that school? I think they actually don't go to that school anymore. But if they were to go to school, period, I would hope they homeschool now. But, I haven't talked to them about what the remedy was for it yet. However, what happens when they send that child to school, or if that child goes to a babysitter? What do you think happens? What do you think goes through the mind of the parent there? But nobody thinks about that bill. Right? They are working for a system that will make them murder, oppress others, part of the problem, right? So yeah, and you can come out that system if you want. That's why you have some police officers that walk away. And I'm not, once again, I have to say this again, not every police officer is a terrible human being, but you're right. That's just like saying not every white person hates black people. That's accurate. So what I would ask the social construct here was the white person, what I would ask you is, what are you willing to walk away from? Because you're not going to change it from in the system. Put your money where your mouth is. This is when people talk about privilege and using your privilege. I don't want you to use your privilege. I want you to put your money where your mouth is. If you're like-minded and trying to make sure that you do what all these states that seceded from the union, legally they did, by the way, too. It was unlawful to go ahead and go to war against them. The union was wrong to go to war because technically, by law, look, we built the Constitution on slavery. How in the world are you going to tell us we can't have slaves? They weren't in the wrong for leaving. That's why the Second Amendment is there, right? You have the right to be able to form a militia, and if necessary, if there's a government that comes against you, every person, this is according to the Declaration of Independence, every person should have the right, every people should have the right to be able to leave and to make sure that they create something that's new. And the United States of America should be supportive of it, according to the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Are they? Of course not. Because the number one job of the president, going back to the president, when people are asking questions about the president, number one job of the president is what? Is to preserve the union. That is his number one domestic gig, preserve the union. And really everything else that he does, even foreign wise, because he always has one major domestic thing he has to do and one major foreign thing he has to do. But what's his main thing when he goes out, no matter what, is to make sure that he's going to secure the union, make sure that this union, what almost happened in the 1860s will never happen again. And guess what? There's bills attached to that. So you think your labor, right? You think that your labor, yeah, they're puppets, exactly, Sister Sheeman. How you doing? You think that your labor, right? If you work at a restaurant, you think your labor is to make sure that people eat. Your labor is to make sure that that the United States, right, to make sure that the union is preserved. Matter of fact, to keep perfecting this union based off of chattel slavery. Everything that you do in this system, you got to realize is to preserve the union. Now you got to start asking yourself, and how you doing, Sister Deborah? You have to start asking yourself, what union are we trying to preserve? What is it that unites the corporation of the United States What is it that unites these states? What is it that caused them to be United States in the first place? Was it not chattel slavery? Salah. Right? Pause and think about it. If you have a system that was based off of chattel slavery, and that's what they were built on, and their goal is to preserve the union, they became a union based off of chattel slavery, then you can't talk about this union without chattel slavery, can you? So everything that you do that's tied to the United States of America, if it's taxed, it preserves the union. We don't want to go there. We don't want to talk about it. We should talk about it. We should acknowledge it. Everything that you do in this system is designed to preserve the union, period. Period. Point blank. Yeah, it's not about mankind. It's not about man. It's not about woman. It's not about husbands and wives. It's not about representing all people. It's not about we should just give up who we are and become American. It's about preserving the union. The union is based off of chattel slavery. If you don't believe so, tell me the people that came here from other places who didn't come here and create slaves. Even before it was called America, people who come to the Americas, tell me the people that came from other places. There are people who did come and didn't create slavery, by the way, right? If you want to do something. So there are some people you can see, but tell me the people who are in charge today who didn't come here to make sure that they got slaves. That's what made them a union. When the Pope allowed conquistadors, or when the Pope allowed conquerors, or when the Pope allowed whomever to come over here, the Pope got a cut of slaves. MJ said it best. They don't really care about us. By the way, remember all the stuff going on with Kanye, the same people that Kanye was talking about, people. By the way, Kyrie wasn't even talking about him. Kyrie just basically said, I believe I'm an Israelite. And then he's posted something that probably said something about him, right? So the same people that say that are telling you should have a problem with Kanye and Kyrie, same people who are telling you that you should have a problem with Kanye and Kyrie, the same people who will tell you that are the same people who will allow the N-word to come up. But remember MJ, he had a part in the song where he was trying to uplift Jewish people. And he said, kick me, that K word that rhymes with pike, kick me, don't you black or white me, right? Or is it kick me, don't you wrong or right me, something like that. But he said that, and guess what? They immediately, MJ, you got to take that down. Blank it out. Beep it out. Do whatever you got to do, but you will not hear that ever again. And they got rid of that altogether. But you can have in the NBA, the same place that they talking about with Kyrie, you can have at all these places and art galas and stuff. You can have and I love me some Kendrick, don't get it twisted, but you can go and you can have Kendrick. Remember, this has been something that came out. You can have Kendrick, I don't remember the lyrics. Whatever rhythm that was, I can't remember that is. But he was sitting up there saying the N-word and stuff at a what is it, at a fashion show, right? People going down the runway. He was saying that stuff. They didn't have a problem with that then, because it's about black people. So black people can call each other the N-word all they want at this place, right? But you say something about somebody else, oh, we got a problem with that. But you know why they were able to shut down one and you can't shut down the other? Is because money. There's a bill for that. There's a bill for that, right? They don't want to pay the same bills you pay. See, this is where it gets deeper, and this is where we got to come into comprehension for ourselves, and we got to acknowledge that we have to have some more accountability when we roll with. Y'all ready for this? There's a bill with it. Y'all ready? Watch this, because I'm not saying the Jewish people didn't have no blood spill. What I'm saying, though, is that every time that they say that N-word, you got to comprehend that you got to pay a bill for that. Every time that you say that you ain't nothing. Now, I know there's Niger, Negus, Negus, all those things. Those are different words. Those are different terms, right? What I'm here to tell you is that when they saying that, the same Kanye, they'll say the N-word, but then they'll say white lives matter, right? I'm telling you that what they're not recognizing, these artists aren't recognizing, if you want to call them artists and stuff, if you say the N-word is the brush that they use to paint it, whatever. They don't recognize that means that in the mind of people now, that ain't nothing but an N-word. So blood, it gets spilled. There's a consequence for every choice. There is an invoice. There's a consequence. There's a consequence that comes in now. You see that? There's a consequence. There has to be a consequence. There has to be something that messes with people. There has to be something that's hurting folk. There's a consequence, right? There's a consequence. If you keep saying that these women ain't nothing but bees, these H's ain't loyal, these B's ain't loyal, or stuff like that, when you say they ain't loyal out here, there's a consequence. Now there ain't marriage. See, there's a bill. It's not just only, see, there's a bill that we're paying for this stuff. Okay, I hear you. Right? There's a consequence. I told you today, I realized that they're going to be a low number because there's a consequence. If you're going to speak truth, consequence. That's why we had to have multiple TikToks and we had to keep showing TikTok where they lie. There's a consequence. There's something attached to this stuff. We got to be honest about it. Right? Like and if the consequence is if I tell the truth, then I get shunned, then we have to sit there and say, why does that consequence exist? And should we want to be part of a system that consequence exists? If the consequence is to speak against the system and to speak against oppression is to mess things up, then I have to ask myself, do I want to be part of that consequence? Or do be part of a system that gives me that consequence? Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate y'all for being on, right? How you doing, Tahiti? You gotta talk to yourself. Right? Hear me, Facebook, hear me, TikTok, hear me, YouTube. You got to talk to yourself. You got to remind yourself. You got to speak to yourself. Amen. Yeah, Minister Nice. Truth separates. You got to speak to yourself. Are you willing to be separated? Are you willing to be ostracized? As long as it's for the kingdom. I'm not saying be ostracized because you're one of these people out here saying women don't matter. I'm not saying be ostracized because you're one of these people out here saying black men ain't I ain't saying be ostracized because I'm just doing me. No, I'm saying if you're willing to tell the truth, and to make sure that your people start living differently and start giving them an opportunity to come out the system and somebody will come against you, well, be ready for that. You signed up for it. The second that you decided to live in, not to know, see, or not even to be aware, a lot of people are aware of truth, but very few people are willing to live in truth. right? There's a lot of people that are aware of truth, and I don't hear that all the time. I'm aware of that. I already know that the government. You can't tell me this. You can't tell me nothing about Christianity. You can't tell me nothing about America. You can't tell me nothing about this. You can't tell me nothing about social construct. I didn't say tell me. I said, do you live? How do you live? You can live on your knees and know that you should be standing on your feet. Well, that's a bar right there. How you doing, Sister Bree? That's a bar right there for somebody, right? Like you can, you hear what I'm saying? You can know that you should be living on your feet, but you can still be living on your knees. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for that. That's a bar. Like how many people know that they should be on their feet, but they continue to stay on their knees? And how you doing, Brother Omar? How many people know, or Minister Select Omar, excuse me, how many people know they should be on their feet, but they live on their knees? And we start making excuses. We got Bible verses to keep us on our knees. And I'm not saying we use the Bible verses correctly. I'm saying we use them incorrectly. Turn the other cheek. Turn the other cheek means that if I help you, you might actually reach out because you're a hurt person. You might lash out at me and might strike me on the cheek. And if I decide I'm going to help you again, I need to turn the other cheek and realize that, hey, there might be a possibility I get hit again. I might defend myself, right? I might defend myself this time. But hey, I want him to go in there again. Because maybe you didn't, maybe you struck so fast, maybe it was the middle of a fight and a scrum and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden I tried to get in there and help you. Next thing you know, somebody, you hit me thinking that I was somebody else or whatever. You were so disheveled, you were so messed up. Right? Like, but it doesn't mean live like a doormat. And isn't it not interesting that they want you to live in Stockholm syndrome? Isn't that interesting? They want you to live in Stockholm syndrome. We've been beating you. We've been whipping you. We've been killing you. We've been making sure your baby girls. We literally been burning and bombing your baby girls in churches during services. We've been making sure that we've been taking them when they get to be preteens. We've been making sure that they can't have babies. But then when you say something about it, we say you have a victim mentality. Yeah, you victimized us. Of course I have one. I got to get healed of it. And now as I'm coming out of it, I'm not going to treat my people any differently. I had to go through healing, which meant I had to acknowledge that you were the problem, not I. Hey, how you doing, Queen Drissy? Right? You said, what are my thoughts on deconstructing Christianity? I think Christianity is something that easily is deconstructed. First of all, stop thinking that the Bible is Christian. And I think that would really deconstruct. I think that would really deconstruct it. If I could just be honest right there. I'm sorry, I know I'm getting a little off by kind of focusing on that question. But real talk, it'd be really simple to deconstruct Christianity. Stop assuming that Christianity is biblical. And once you get off that, you realize that it's not, right? Like realize that the word Christian didn't even exist when the Bible was written. Realize the word Christian doesn't mean to be Christ-like, but it actually comes from Christianos. That's why you have a Christian and an os. It's talking about the people who are Christian, right? It's not the people who are Christ-like. Cristianos is actually talking about people who mixed and matched a whole bunch of different stuff, and they were actually hated not only by people who were followers of the way, but they were actually hated, or at least the teachings that they gave were hated, but also the people and the teachings were hated by people who weren't even biblically inclined, because they were like, you guys keep trying to take parts of our culture and make it yours. So if you want to deconstruct even Christianity, which by the way, this is a very Christian nation you live in, right? So Christianity ain't gonna help you out of what Christianity started. That messes with people. And by the way, if you don't know, I am a pastor. I do believe in the Bible, the origins of the Bible, the original Bible, right? But you dealing with a whole bunch of stuff that's not biblical because you become Christian. Christian comes from Christianos. If you want to deconstruct Christianity, then stop constructing it on the Bible, construct it on what it is, which is a mixing and matching of a bunch of different cultures. And if you don't believe that, go to the National Basilica of whatever it is, the National Basilica of something in Washington, D.C. If you look it up, I've been there a couple times. And one time did a really long, extensive thing. I made a long video for my family. I was supposed to make a long video for you guys to be able to see. So maybe we'll do that at some point. I think I still have the pictures. They're from years ago, so I'd have to go find them. However, when you walk through it, you will see clearly. You will see clearly that you're dealing with something different than you might think you're dealing with. Right? You will see clearly that this thing does not look like what you think. You will see clearly that there are many different Marys. Every country has their own Mary. Right? But you think that. So when you see somebody talking about Mary, by the way, her name wasn't even originally Mary. Right? Just like Yahshua's name was not originally Jesus. Oh yeah. The National Basilica. It's over in Northeast. I'm trying to remember the name. It's whatever road. When you get into Maryland, it turns into, there's like a 7-Eleven or something when you're coming out of DC and Northeast going into Maryland. And when you come out of it, it turns into Queens Chapel Road over there in, what part of that Maryland is that? I used to live over there. Not over near Rhode Island. It's parallel to Rhode Island. It's not going away. So you got like Rhode Island, you're coming out, and then you end up in Maryland, and there's like a bus stop, and there's Mount Rainier right there. And if you look down further, you're going to be looking at like the Costco and stuff. But if you go up, there's a road that's parallel, right? And I can't remember what the name of that road is. Is it Eastern? Not, maybe Eastern. I'm not sure. But if you're going down that road, that's where it is. Not Georgia Avenue. No, not Georgia, because Georgia Avenue goes straight up and down. 7 turns into Georgia, right? And that's Northwest. I'm talking about Northeast. So it'd be like perpendicular almost to that, kind of, sort of. Not Silver Spring. We're not in Silver Spring. Are we close to? No, not even close to Silver Spring. Whatever it is. If you look up the National Basilica, it's in Northeast. There's like a college that is right near. There's like a college, little small college campus over there. Might be Michigan. Matter of fact, Michigan makes more sense. I think it is Michigan, right? Because Michigan Avenue, that's where the Children's Hospital is. The VA is right over there as well, even though the VA is not on Michigan, but it's in the same area, right? And it's like 111 Michigan Avenue is either the VA or the Children's Hospital address, and you keep going towards Maryland. And when you go towards Maryland, and you'll eventually pass it on your left-hand side. If you go and you see a 7-Eleven on your right, and then the church right across from 7-Eleven, you've gone too far because now you're going into Maryland. So turn around if you do that and come back, it'll now be on your right-hand side. But it's across from like a little campus and stuff, right? And when you see it, that's the National Basilica. It took them almost 100 years to finish building it or something, but people have been going in it for a while. We saw it when it finally was finished. I'd been in there before it was finished and saw it when it was finally finished. And you'll see all types of wild worship going on in there when you go in there. You'll see people, running around we saw a woman running around on her knees, like knees ate up, just running around on her knees and doing all this weird stuff and like hitting herself, because she was looking for a blessing. By the way, the Bible tells us not to do that, right? You see what I'm saying? It's a mix of a whole bunch of stuff. Go in there and you'll see stuff. When you stand on there, you got to be careful. I was pointing out to my family as we were going through. I was like, yo, check out this checkerboard floor. Some of y'all know about the checkerboard floor. That's some Masonic stuff going on, right? By the way, the Pope has the checkerboard floor too. I was like, hey, but that's Christian. My definition, you were walking into a Cristiano's place. We had to be prayed up. You better be ready for what you're going into in there. You hear what I'm saying? But people don't know that. But for every choice, there's an invoice. And this is a very Cristiano's nation that mixes and matches with everyone. You say, God bless America. You don't even know George Washington is supposed to be the God. Really, technically, it's undefinable who God is. But George Washington is the one who has the obelisk there. When I say it's undefinable, go look in Black's Law Dictionary, try and look for the definition of God. Now, they do have definitions of things that have to do with God. I don't know if I took a screenshot of that or not. Let me see if I took a screenshot. I was doing a lot of research. Last night, my wife was coming to me with some excellent stuff. Let's see, that's person. Yeah, I might not have gotten it. I don't think I got that one. Yeah, that's the District of Columbia stuff. Yeah, I don't think I got that one. I don't think I got that one. But go look up God. You will see that there's stuff with God in the title of it, of the definitions, but you won't see a God in the definition. Right? You got to stay out of checkmate positions. True that, right? But you'll see God, but God is undefinable. But God to somebody might be something different. So you have to think to yourself, when they say God bless America, how do they define God? That would be I want to say that might be the one I was looking at yesterday was the 4th edition. I have an 11th edition. I've seen whichever one that is, right? But you got to realize like this stuff is right there. They're telling you, they're showing you, they're not hiding it. And if they're trying to, it's not hidden very well. But it's got to be, because it's got to be hidden in plain sight. The only thing that allows it to remain hidden or to be mysterious is because you're not aware of the culture. This is why Paul and even Peter and Yashua and other people, they keep talking about a mystery, right? Something that is mysterious. It is something that wants to be revealed, but it cannot be revealed if you don't see it. And so there's a bill that you're paying because you don't know the mystery. Oh, that's awesome, Sister Deja. Yeah, I would, if from time to time, I would go into them. I mean, heck, it might be a thing of even, kind of having that closeness, in that relationship too. That might be something that's cool as well, but definitely look into those things. Yeah, you have to make a sacrifice to invest in knowledge. You know who some of the wisest people I've ever met? People on the street. Like some of the things that started me on my journey. Obviously, I started when I was really young, but I'm telling you, when I became homeless and you ain't got time and you have no money and stuff, and all you can do is just wait around till you eat. You only can go to places like a library. It's interesting. You go to places like a library because at least they'll let somebody who's shunned in society like you be in there. I mean, you know why? Because people shun knowledge. So they don't care if homeless people go to libraries, because if homeless people go to libraries, nobody really goes to libraries. Libraries. I was close to say a library. Library, right? Nobody really goes to the library like that, right? They don't find it. Biblioteca is not something that's necessary for them. That's why you don't care about a biblios, because you don't care about a biblioteca. You don't care about what's in there because you don't care about a library. You said you're about to sell your PlayStation? Okay. I'm on. If you're being led to, go ahead and do that. I don't find nothing wrong with it. Just make sure it's not taking over your life. But people don't care about, and I'm not coming against you. I'm thinking about my own situation. I had to do those things. My child has to do those things. I'm still a game head, but I just don't have nothing to play. So if it's not on the phone, I can't play it. So I'm limited to what I can do. So I'm the type of personality. If I start doing something, I'll just stay and keep on doing it and keep on doing it and keep on doing it and keep on doing it. That's why when it comes to study, you give me a word, you give me an assignment, I'll keep on looking and keep on looking and keep on looking and keep on looking, right? So that's why I was talking about me. So I hope I probably jumped on you a little bit, but it's because I was really jumping on me. Like that was me talking to myself. Because they got me. I'm Nintendo age, when Nintendo helped to be able to bring video games back. Because remember, Atari had messed everything up, and everybody was done with video games because Atari, had too much stuff. Nobody was buying them anymore. They literally dumped and buried all the Atari games in a whole ditch and everything. And then come to find out, the Nintendo came and took over. That was when I got into video games. I was right off of Atari. My father was Atari. I was like in the arcades and stuff a little bit, but then when Nintendo came and you could bring the arcade home, that's when they messed it up for people like me. Right? For every choice is an invoice, right? So so my father gave me what he thought was cool, but at the same time, my father realized this boy is worse than I was, and if I'm not careful, my son, like he actually, part of what he wants to do for a living, he wants to build video games. And so I'm like, as long as we can build some stuff that's going to help folk, and as long as you're going to use it to help the community, I don't see no problem. But I see myself in him. I see myself in them. So Sega, yeah, I never got a Sega. I used to play Sega. I had to go to other people's houses to play Sega. So Sega was like a big deal for me. Oh, we're going over Jimmy's house. Jimmy's got Sega. Sonic was like, when I saw Sonic for the first time, Sonic was messed me up. Like when I saw Sonic come out, Sonic messed me. I thought Sonic was the great, like still to this day. Like now if you play Sonic, you be looking at the graphics like, oh, what was this? But back in the day, when I saw Sonic, seeing Sonic was like seeing Lord of the Rings, or like seeing The Matrix, or like seeing, whatever movie you want to put. Sonic was like I didn't believe. I had heard rumors. I had never played it. Sonic had been out for months, but I was a Nintendo child, so I didn't have it. But when I went over my friend's house and they played Sonic, I was like, "Oh, this is life right here." I'm in the arcade games. Some of them weren't on the level of Sonic. Like, and Sonic was what, just 16-bit, right? PlayStation Sonic was just 16-bit. But 16-bit back in the day, that was the stuff. How you doing, Sister Mary? So anyways, I'm getting off track. But those are things that were awesome. You used to love those things. Yeah, you said most people don't even have library cards, right? And so if you want to go, said, if you read your Bible, I'll help you out.